All right, this next section continues with critical thinking. We are going to try to accomplish the following goals with this video. Now, one thing I've noticed today, I teach this course in class also, is we can't have a dynamic dialogue like I do with my students in class. All I can really do is give you the ideas that we talk about, and then maybe you can apply them to the homework and whatever project you intend to do and whatnot. So here's what we have. We want to define the importance of critical thinking. Well, I don't know about define it, but describe it. I would like to show some situations here and pick apart what's being said and look at what the arguments are and the premises and things of that nature. There's going to be 8 hints that they give for evaluating commonly encountered arguments and decisions. And finally, we want to apply critical thinking to anything you see in the media. Let me scroll down a little bit here. I have my next bit. Hint 1, we're going to read or listen carefully. So let me scroll down a little bit more. This was a bill that was actually sent, as it says right here. The purpose of the bill, first passed by the first session of the 104th Nebraska Legislature in 2015, is to eliminate the death penalty and change the maximum penalty for the crime of murder in the first degree to life imprisonment. Shall Legislative Bill 268 be repealed? And you have 2 options here, to retain or repeal. The question that I have for you is the following. If you are in favor of the death penalty, how should you vote here? So we can take a look at the bare bones of this argument. And the way I'm going to do it is come up here and what's the purpose of the bill? First of all, we should figure what that is. So what I see here is the purpose of this bill is to eliminate the death penalty and change maximum penalty for the crime of murder in the first degree to life imprisonment. Now notice there's some information that is, while it is actually relevant, it doesn't help here. When it says passed by, so it was passed by, so that means it's law. That means right now the situation is that if somebody were to commit murder, they would not be given or murder in the first degree, they would not be given the death penalty because that law has passed. So the law of the land right now is no death penalty. Now, if you're in favor of the death penalty, you would like that to change. So the correct thing for you is repeal. Something you, and I want to go to the bare bones. Purpose, you can do something like this. The purpose is to eliminate the death penalty. That's the purpose of the law. It has eliminated the death penalty. But if you're in favor of the death penalty, you want that repealed. So you want to repeal the elimination of the death penalty. Notice though, this right here, repeal the elimination is a double negative. These often will confuse people because they have to go forward and backwards in their mind on this thing. And there are ways of writing things without double negatives that will be a lot clearer, and they chose not to. You have to keep in mind when you're reading this, there are issues involved. The people who wrote this bill may have been for the death penalty or against the death penalty. It's hard to tell from the writing of the bill. The next hint your book gives is to look for hidden assumptions. So consider this situation here. The statement is, we should build more prisons because incarcerating more criminals will reduce the crime rate. Now, what is hidden as an assumption here? Here, the assumption is by incarcerating more criminals, the crime rate will go down. Is that true? So that's the first question you want to ask. Is it true? So is it true that if you jail more criminals, crime will go down? Is that absolutely true? Well, you can't take it at face value. They're probably thinking along these lines. Fewer criminals, I'll say fewer free criminals, clearly make less crime because there's fewer people. So these free criminals are the ones that are committing the crimes, or so we think. So if you have fewer of them to commit crimes, just by the nature of them being fewer of them, they will simply commit fewer crimes. This may seem obvious to a lot of people. In fact, you would probably have a politician who might be in favor of this particular statement saying that it's pretty clear that if we had fewer bad people on the streets, they would do fewer bad things would happen. I think that's the logic that they're using. But that's subject to some thought. Think, for example, here I'm going to throw in some things to muddy the situation here. Suppose you're operating in a gangland environment, and you go and you round up a bunch of gang members from a gang you've been after for months, and you put away their top guys, right? Well, what happens in a situation like that is the other gangs will simply take over their territory, or their lower guys will rise to the top and take the territory of the missing gang members. In that case, then, crime hasn't changed at all. Other groups have decided to commit more crimes because they have more space to do it in. So that's one problem against it. So as we see, these two things, that's not necessarily true. In fact, check this out. I am going to go, if I can, find the internet here. And I am going to go to Google. So in the internet, I did a search on more prisons means less crime. I just want to get an idea here of what the internet thinks about it. So Google's AI provided me with this sentence here. No, more prisons does not mean less crime. Now, I can't just take this as a true statement, but it starts to lead me to believe that maybe what was so obvious before is not true. It will give some details itself. We scroll down here underneath of that. It'll give different possibilities other than taking criminals off the street or building more prisons, for example. Lengthy sentences, perhaps, rehabilitation, all these things, you would need to read through all these to get a better feel. And even then, another place to start is Wikipedia is always a good starting place, but then you have after that, you'll have several papers, several websites that are going to talk all about these things. Here's one that says incarceration and crime, a weak relationship. And so you can start analyzing these things and come to an opinion after you've read both sides of the story. So as we've seen here, I think what you should do is probably start at the internet, look at statistical studies. Right now, I think it's fairly safe to trust web addresses that end in .gov. For the most part, those are covered. Those are just statistics that the government makes available to people and other documents that are freely available to the public. I'm not guaranteeing you they're good, but they probably have as high a level of reliability as anything you're going to find. Other places you might go are those that end in .org, although I feel a little bit worried about those because .org just simply means you're nonprofit. It doesn't mean you don't have an opinion. So everything you have to swallow with a grain of salt. So here, this is the hidden assumption right here. This is the one. It's just to them, it's automatic. But as we see from AI, doesn't think it's automatic. Our next one is hint 3, identify the real issue. Here's an example that they use. This was sent into a newspaper's editorial. With last Saturday's sellout crowd at the Moonlight Amphitheater, it is clear that the parking problem has gotten worse. Concertgoers parked along residential streets up to a mile away from the amphitheater, badly overcrowding sidewalks, blocking driveways, and disrupting traffic. In light of this parking problem, future concerts should be banned. So what I see here, really quick, what I'm able to see really quick out of this is that the conclusion is right here at the end. They believe that future concerts should be banned. So let's write that down as the conclusion. What are the premises that they're supporting it? Well, there's a lot here. They say it's clear that parking has gotten worse. So the first sentence is just sort of a restatement of what they think is going on. So they've not really made a premise there. But then they do start to get into premises here. Here's a premise. And if you wanted to, this could be one big premise, or it could be several little premises. So we see he's complaining about people are parking in residential areas. They're badly overcrowding sidewalks, I guess, when they're walking along them, not parking on them. Blocking driveways, disrupting traffic. So we could just say that traffic is a lot worse. So a simple premise is this. So traffic is a lot worse during concerts. And these aren't really conclusions, but they are supporting evidence. So we could do this. We could say residential parking. What were some other things? Overcrowded sidewalks. Blocked driveways. And the last one was traffic disruptions. And of course, the conclusion we've already spoken about, that's this future concerts should be banned. So they have their reasons for not wanting it. However, you can bet there are reasons to have these concerts. Probably the biggest reason is the city might make a lot of money from this. So they're not going to buy this at all. What could the city do to remedy this situation? So this person is not complaining about the loudness of the concerts. They're just complaining about the city as a whole, the traffic problem as a whole, while the concert is going on. What could the city do? If the city is making good money off of it, perhaps they should consider something like a parking deck where all of these people can park. You could even parlay that into a way of making money by charging people to park in the parking deck. And then the city could pay the payments on the construction cost of the parking garage simply by taking revenue from parking and using that to pay the bill. I am almost certain that whoever wrote this, probably they themselves, I don't know, but I'm certain that they would have gotten great pushback from the city planners. But this person, if he's really serious, or he or she is really serious about this, while it's nice to write an op-ed in the newspaper, he should actually probably go and talk to some of the city planners, maybe go to his mayor, go to a congressperson or something like this, and see if anything can be done before you try the more drastic thing of removing a crucial revenue stream from the city or wherever it's located. Our next thing is to understand all of your options. So we were considering buying a new car, say. The car is on sale for $20,000. You have two options, at least two that you're considering. One is to buy the car outright for $20,000, and the second has two further options. So if you lease to own, you lease the car for a little bit, and then you can buy the car at a reduced amount after the lease. Which is the best deal? Now, before we do anything, I've got some money that I want to compute here. So let's take a look at 2A. I want to calculate how much 2A is going to cost me in total. So what we're going to have is $450 per month, and it's for 3 years. So there's 36 months times $450. And let me grab my calculator. So we're going to do 36 times 450, 16,200. So let me get that in. Now, we also owed $1,500 at signing, and then you could buy the car for $9,000. So I'm calculating the total amount the car would cost under this scheme. And I've got 0, 0, 7, 16, $26,700. Certainly more expensive than the $20,000 if you just buy the car. Let's take a look at B. We have 5 years, so that's 60 months times $300 per month. I happen to know that that's $18,000. Then we only had $750 due at signing, and then we could buy the car for $50,000. And so I'll add them up. I get a 0, a 5, 7, and 23, it looks like. $23,750. So that's less. Certainly, it seems like a better deal. $26,700 is pretty heavy. And one of the things that probably is the most important to any car buyer is how much they're going to pay per month. So that may be a consideration here. If this person doesn't have $20,000 to give right now, he's going to finance the car. Let's take a look at his finance options. So finance means how is he going to pay off this car? So if you take a finance, you are accepting a loan of $20,000 so that you can pay the car. He has two available to him, let's say. He has a 3-year loan or a 5-year loan to make them perfectly comparable with the other thing. So suppose we have a 3-year loan at 5% APR. I've done the work before this, and I know that this will be about $600 per month. Let's see, the total payments would be this. 36 times $600. Let's pull up the calculator and see what it says. $21,600. That's the least so far. This is the best. However, we're talking about a $600 a month bill. That's heavy for some people, because if you come back up here, Part B was actually less than Part A if you look at it, and these are the easiest payments to use. Now, you can always decrease your payments by taking out a longer loan. I've seen loans as long as 7 years for cars nowadays. And while you bring your interest or you bring your payments down, the interest rate is higher for shorter loans or for longer loans. So a 5-year loan at 5.5% APR. Now, the payments for this are going to be about $382 per month. I'll say $380 just to make it simple for my calculations. So our total here is going to be, let's see, this is 60 months, 60 times 380. And let's pull up the calculator to see what that is. So we'll take 380 times 60. And we have 22,800. So this option, the total amount, looks kind of good. Both of these finance options seem pretty good because both of these situations are lower than either of the finance situations. So personally, the problem though is your best monthly payment is this $300. Now, if you could squeeze out another 80, I suspect that this would be the deal most people would go for. In fact, 5-year loans are probably the most popular length for car loans. Anyways, the 3 doesn't seem so bad, except it's got this horrible monthly payment. So if the monthly payment is your primary driving factor, you're going to choose between this option B here, leasing for 60 months, and then buying the car, or this 5-year loan. Now keep in mind this as well. When you're done paying off the lease here in Part B, that $5,000, if you don't have $5,000 in cash, then you're going to have to get a loan for that. So you're going to pay a little more than $5,000 actually for that extra piece. So indeed, both of these options look really good. However, people have reasons for leasing. Many times leases are done through companies that people work for. Other people like to lease because they like at the end of every 3 years or 5 years, however long their lease agreements are for, they like the idea of getting a new lease and getting a new car. So they always have a relatively new car. That's why some people like them. Here's another one that you want to keep, and everybody probably already knows this anyways. You got to watch out for the fine print. Here's a perfect example of a bank that is offering interest rates, high interest rates, or double the interest rates of their competitors for certificate of deposits, or CDs if you want. They say our certificates of deposit have the highest interest rates you'll find anywhere, more than double that of most other banks. For a combination of investment safety and high interest, there's no better choice. Hold on just a second here. What is the biggest problem with this? There's one very big problem. This is all the information I have. This here, that asterisk, by now you know what to look for. You know to go down to the bottom of the page and look for smaller font print that describes what's going on there. And in this case, this was an actual advertisement. The book assures me that all of these things did come from real life. So what I've decided to do is make it seem like that. You're going to go to the bottom of the page and you're going to want to look for any kind of information that's not listed up there. Sure enough, here is something right here. I just put it in myself, but it's got to be somewhere. If it's not, don't even bother with the deal. Just run away. Notice how small it is compared to my other font too. And it may even be smaller than that. These are typically some things that they probably prefer you not to do or to read. But I'm going to see if I can make this bigger. And what do we have here? Our high yields come from our unique ability to invest in valuable offshore assets. Interesting. I'm going to pull the scenario from the book on the person who was considering the CD. The scenario is like this. Marshall is retiring and he wants to make money in a safe environment. That means he wants to put it where it will be safe, not lose value, gain value. So he's deciding on banks to do that. Right now, he currently does have a bank account. It's paying who knows what percent on it. But for him, this bank here looked very interesting because it says they have the highest interest rates. It'll be more than double that. Well, he would love to have that. So he might consider this choice. However, this is a piece of information that may or may not be on the other one, FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, will make it so if this bank that you bought the CD from fails, then you'll get your money. The government or whoever the premiums are through, the insurance company is through, will send me a check for the money that was stolen from my account. There's no indication on this asterisk ones that there's FDIC, so you could lose your money. Now that doesn't mean that the asterisk one is bad necessarily. Some people, when they invest money, they like things that have a chance of having a high yield, but they understand that there are risks with that. So if you look at these two, if one of them is FDIC and one of them is not, then you're talking about a safety issue. The one that is FDIC insured, you can't lose it. But the one that is not, you can absolutely lose that altogether. Keep in mind, we're talking about small independent banks, and they fail by the thousands every year. So there's another thing, too, that might be interesting to Marshall. Marshall was looking for safety. He thought the stock market was too risky. Well, look at the asterisks. They're investing in offshore assets. That doesn't sound to me really unrisky, unless I need more information before I'm going to trust that, is what I'm saying. And so the point is, read the fine print, and then even this wasn't enough to really tell you anything. The fine print didn't provide any details. So you would probably want to look at what they are investing at and then get an idea if you're going to go through with this and spend time and actually make a retirement out of it. Our next situation is this. Are other conclusions possible? So let me read what I have here. During the COVID years, there were, and as a matter of fact, there still are many people who won't take the COVID vaccine. The primary thing that I've heard is they felt the vaccine was rushed and so had a high chance of causing harm or even death. Now, I am not speaking in this case of people that don't take vaccines just at all. There are many people who have no problem with long-standing vaccines, but they had an issue with this particular one because they thought it was rushed to market. They didn't think they did enough research. I don't know, not enough people were tested. I'm not exactly sure. But here's one situation, one case. A famous basketball player, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, died shortly after getting it. Now, he was about 70 years old, I think, when he died. But this is a phrase after he died that I heard from some of these anti-vaxxers. Let's call them anti-COVID vaxxers because they typically will take vaccines. Here was a phrase that was heard. See? I told you that vaccine will kill you. I'm afraid they're making quite a fallacy here because they're letting one case determine their belief in this. But we could look at it this way. We could, if we're going to give the person their due that they're a critical thinker, maybe they're just letting this be another piece of evidence that's adding to a huge pile of evidence. But for most people, I don't think this is true. I think for most people, what they did is they didn't want to take it because it was rushed. They were scared of it. And then once one person died, that was enough. That fed their confirmation bias. The net effect, if you want to put this into a big picture situation, is that all of these anti-COVID vaxxers are going to swear off the vaccines for COVID forever. Once the COVID vaccine was no good, they believe that anything that comes out after it is a variant of the one that was killing people. And so they're never going to get it done. Our next example is outright fakery. They're lying to you. They're just making stuff up. Check out this story. I just want to show you. This will show you what you can do to try to test something to see if it has any merit whatsoever. So what we have here is a fake news story. During the 2016 election cycle, sites tracking fake news stories found that the most widespread story came under the headline, Obama signs executive order banning the Pledge of Allegiance in schools nationwide. And they go, what signs might have told you that this story was fake? Now, what I would do is the first thing I would do, the very first thing, if this thing will let me copy here, I will do it, but I don't think it will. I'm going to copy Obama signs executive order. So let's see what happens when I go on the internet and look it up. So come over here. Obama signs executive order. Let's see what else we have in here. I want to get it exact. We're banning the Pledge of Allegiance. In schools, I believe. Let me make sure I have that right, that part. In schools nationwide, there's even more to it. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. So there's factcheck.org. This book that we're using in the class seems to think that factcheck.org is a reliable place. I tend to be a little leery of almost any internet sites. The Gov ones I take to be fairly true. Wikipedia, you got to watch out because those are just individuals writing things in there. Nobody actually checks to make sure that it's accurate. Let's take a look at the Kent blogs. Here we have Obama signs executive order. So I went down a few and I found this one. Let's click on that. And in September 2000, they credited a fake news site. Let me go to it. See, what happened is it's now part of Hollywood Gazette, but this was before it was Hollywood Gazette. What you would see is this up here. You would just see ABC News, but it's really not ABC News. They're a fake site. Let me see if there's one here. See, you can see this here. Investigation of election results, but you can see ABC News. It looks like a legitimate website. I think in this same article, they talk about the other thing, but you have to read through it. So really, it's easy if you can see that it's a fake website, but people will read without investigating, like looking up at the URL and things like that. That's all you got to do, and to give you an idea of what's going on. But that ABC News certainly is made to look like it's serious. Look, they even look at these. And that story was completely bogus. They simply made it up. So anyways, you can have fun there, but this part of critical thinking is making sure that you check the sources and things of that nature to make sure that it's not fake. Our last point to make here is don't miss the big picture. Let's take a look at this. This is problem 29 from your homework. I didn't like really the example the book used, so I picked a different one. How was the disease smallpox eradicated? Now, you should know that it was eradicated by injections, medications, whatever. And it was eradicated, I believe, in 1977. That was, no more cases were reported after 1977. However, in the 76 years that it was around in the 1900s, globally, the disease killed 300 million people. Let's continue this. How many lives would be lost to smallpox each year if the disease were still circulating widely and we had no way to prevent it? So the first thing I want to do this, We had 300 million killed in a 76-year time period. These are global, not obviously not just American. Let me go back to my calculator. And I'm going to divide that by 76. So it looks like, I'm just say close to 4 million. It's a little bit under, yeah, close to 4 million. So a little under 4 million a year. So let's make this approximate. I want you to have that because COVID was our last bad thing, and I don't know what the global deaths were to it, but I think they were similar because we had 1 million in America, and there were other countries that had larger countries with large populations were similar in nature, I believe. Although I would have to do some reading on that before I would commit to anything. So you can see this is sort of the big picture. We're looking at how many people per year are dying from this. Now, if you actually go and look at the curves, let me go online. So what you can do to give yourself a look at online is, I think I looked yesterday. Let me go into Google. We can say global smallpox deaths 1900 to 1976. That's what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, it doesn't. I couldn't find anything that did that. Now, you could possibly go to one of those .gov websites, and with their data, they sometimes let you use their data to put it into an Excel spreadsheet or something. But here, as you can see, it was up and down, up and down, up and down, all the way until it got to here. And then it dropped off quickly. That's slightly, they must have been, I don't know if the vaccine came out in 76, and that's what brought it must be, that must be attached to 76. Oh, that's 75. Then, oh, they tell you there. 76, 954. Once that came out, look at this. 0000 after that. Very effective vaccine. But look how up and down these are. Consider yourself, suppose this is happening in a country or whatever. These are globally. But look at this. Right here. Between 1949 and 1950, look what happened. This thing exploded. So for these 3 years, it was utter devastation throughout the world. And then it started coming down. You've looked at these curves during the COVID situation. All of these curves are always looked at. These things don't just go 4 million a year straight across. They go up and down like this. But what we want to look for are trends that are down. This is a good period when it's going down. See, in the next year, it even went down further. And it looks like they were sort of controlling it. It had a little bit of a reprieve, but they were starting to control it fairly well. See that? I mean, in relation to the way they were, to the way it was exploding. See, and they got it down, then they got it down. But this is the final defeat. The vaccine was, there's no question here. When we click, look at 1976, we have 954. What happened in 1977? Maybe there were some holdouts that weren't getting the vaccine. But then look at 1978, 2. And then 0 thereafter. So 1977 is when they consider it to be eradicated. So maybe they're thinking near the end of the year it was totally gotten rid of. But anyways, these are simply ideas to get you to think more carefully about these. And when dealing especially with these are hot button topic items when you talk, especially politically. So we're trying to make it so that you think reasonably and you speak rationally without getting emotional and lying.